When the newly appointed American Pope Robert Prevost issues a rare summons to Donald Trump for a confidential gathering within the Vatican's walls, he introduces a question seldom broached. What legacy do you wish to leave behind? Rather than exchanging diplomatic formalities, the Pope draws on decades of immersion among Peru's most impoverished, offering a fresh perspective on leadership. I seek not a leader who recognizes my resilience, but one who grasps my suffering, he remarks. For once, Trump listens intently, setting aside his usual readiness to counter. The invitation reaches Mar-a-Lago on elegant Vatican parchment, carried by a modest courier who refuses refreshments and slips away unnoticed. Trump cradles the ivory envelope, studying the intricate papal emblem before carefully unsealing it. The enclosed note is brief, written in a firm, unembellished hand. Dear Mr. President, it would be my privilege to host you for a private exchange at the Vatican next Thursday, if your calendar allows. No entourage, no media, no set itinerary, merely two individuals with unique views on guiding and serving. Sincerely, Robert Francis Prevost, Bishop of Rome. Trump reads it twice, then sets it on his desk. The newly elected Pope, the first American to ascend to the role in over 2 millennia, has captivated the world since white smoke signaled his selection from the Sistine Chapel just a day prior. Cardinal Prevost's rise was unforeseen, an Augustinian monk who labored for years in Chicago's toughest districts before spearheading the church's mission in Peru. His appointment baffled Vatican observers, who expected a traditional European or a figure from the developing world. What do you make of this Pope? Trump inquires, nodding toward the letter as he consults his chief of staff. The advisor lifts the note, schemes it, and creases his brow. It's too early to tell, he's been Pope for less than 48 hours. Liberals embrace him for his advocacy for the poor, while conservatives highlight his doctrinal fidelity. Everyone's imposing their own hopes on him. Sounds like a mirror to my own story, Trump quips with a faint grin. With respect, the advisor adds, this meeting's purpose eludes me. There's no obvious political gain. Catholic voters are divided, and this man's 2 decades in Peru suggest he leans toward immigrants, hardly your stronghold. Trump reclines, mulling it over. Yet he's American, the first of his kind. And he contacted me directly, bypassing protocols, with no hidden motive. Just person to person. He taps the envelope lightly. That's striking. The advisor concedes with a reluctant nod. Fair point, but what's his intent? No one acts without an agenda. Trump pauses, his gaze drifting past his aide to the palm trees rustling outside. At 78, he has spent a lifetime in the spotlight, forging a persona of resolve and tenacity. Few around him question his choices, and even fewer invite him into dialogues where he holds no assured dominance. Get the pilot on the line, he decides. We're headed to Rome. The Vatican shimmers beneath the late morning sun, its travertine surfaces glowing against a pristine Italian sky. Trump's motorcade, coordinated by the U.S. Embassy rather than Vatican officials, weaves through streets emptied of their usual throngs of visitors and devotees. He remarks on the lack of customary grandeur, no Swiss guards in vivid attire, no clergy in ceremonial robes to greet him. Instead, as the vehicle halts at a discreet side entrance of the Apostolic Palace, a solitary priest awaits, clad in plain black with a modest cross at his collar. Mr. President, the priest greets as Trump exits, welcome to the Vatican. I am Father Marco, the Pope's assistant. His Holiness awaits you. Trump acknowledges him with a nod and trails Father Marco through hallways adorned with Renaissance masterpieces and aged tapestries. He recalls a prior Vatican visit during his presidency, a formal affair with photographers documenting every step, advisors coaching him on etiquette, and Melania beside him in a traditional black veil as they met Pope Francis in the stately Apostolic Palace. This occasion differs starkly. No media. No retinue, no ceremonial fronds. Father Marco guides him not to the grand papal offices reserved for dignitaries, but through increasingly unpretentious corridors to a humble wooden door. His Holiness favors this space for guests, Father Marco explains, indicating the door. It was once Pope John XIV's office. Pope Robert feels it encourages authentic dialogue. Inside lies a modest, sun-drenched study, furnished with a wooden desk, 2 chairs, and a shelf of weathered theological volumes. Pope Robert Prevost stands as Trump enters, his white cassock plain save for a simple pectoral cross. At 68, he exudes a quiet authority forged by years of dedication, his face etched with lines yet his eyes keenly observant. "Mr. President," he says, offering his hand, "thank you for joining me." Trump shakes it, noting the steady grasp, and replies, "Your Holiness," before taking a seat. The Pope settles opposite, sunlight streaming through a window, casting a glow between them. A deliberate silence follows, not awkward but purposeful, as if the Pope is assessing Trump not as a statesman, but as a person. Then, in a calm, measured tone, he asks, "May I pose a question, Donald? What do you hope your legacy will be?" The inquiry startles Trump. Accustomed to diplomatic chatter, policy debates, or negotiations with defined goals, this feels raw and probing. He shifts, seeking a genuine response over a rehearsed one. "I've always aimed to be remembered as a victor," he says after a beat. "A doer of great deeds, skyscrapers, agreements, policies that fortified America. Someone unyielding." Pope Robert nods, his face open and inquisitive, free of the calculated edge Trump expects from elite encounters. "There are always those beyond help," Trump adds warily. "That's the truth. I prioritize the greater good, choices that uplift the majority of Americans." The Pope tilts his head. "A pragmatic stance, the most benefit for the most people." He leans in slightly. "May I offer a piece of my own journey?" Trump nods, grateful for the shift. "Before Rome called me," the Pope begins, "I spent 20 years in Peru, chiefly in Chulucanas, a land scarred by poverty and the echoes of political strife. The residents there imparted lessons on authority and fragility that redefined leadership for me." His voice deepens, enriched by lived experience rather than theory. "I met a man named Hector, who lost all, family, home, livelihood, to the clash between government forces and Shining Path guerrillas. I found him in the charred remains of his modest farm, sustained by neighbors with scant resources of their own." The Pope pauses, eyes distant with recollection. "I anticipated rage or resentment. Instead, I encountered deep dignity. Father," he said, "I don't need a leader who notes my endurance. I need one who feels my pain." Pope Robert refocuses on Trump. "That wisdom lingered with me for decades. It presents a leadership model unlike the celebrated ideal, not the forceful figure who conquers challenges, but the compassionate companion who eases a load that might otherwise break the soul." Trump listens silently, then leans in. "With respect, Your Holiness, governing a nation differs from parish work. Countries face tangible foes, foreign and domestic. Strength is non-negotiable. Strength holds value," the Pope agrees. "But have we narrowed its definition? Is it more powerful to control a dialogue or to truly hear? To enforce your vision or seek insight? To hide errors or grow by owning them?" Trump senses a flicker of annoyance. This borders on critique, cloaked as philosophy. "Global leadership is intricate," he asserts. "Choices impact millions. Admitting faults can trigger chaos. Enemies seize on any hint of frailty. Power creates distance," the Pope acknowledges with a nod. "I'm experiencing that already here. The higher one climbs, the less clear the ground becomes. Yet that's why we must strive to recall leadership's purpose, not to be attended, but to attend." He gestures to the window, where ancient olive trees sway in the Vatican gardens. "Those trees have observed empires rise and fall, popes of virtue and vice, conflicts and peace, victories and defeats. They teach me power is fleeting, alone. The question is, how do we wield it while it lasts?" Despite himself, Trump feels a grudging respect emerge. This man's viewpoint compels, not through agreement, but through its evident sincerity, untainted by political games. "You frame power as a weight," Trump notes. "To me, it's been a means to accomplish what others couldn't or wouldn't. Perhaps it embodies both, the Pope suggests. A means and a weight, a privilege and a duty. He offers a subtle smile. Though we may prioritize differently. Sunlight floods the room, highlighting dust particles drifting between them. The Pope reaches for water, and Trump spots a slight tremor in his hand, not from age, but an old wound. The Lima earthquake, 2007, Pope Robert explains, following Trump's look. A wall fell while we searched for survivors, injuring the nerves in my wrist and fingers. Doctors feared permanent loss, but it recovered beyond expectations. He flexes his hand. Imperfect, yet sufficient for the task. Trump is unexpectedly touched by this offhand disclosure, a mark of hands-on care, scars earned not in political arenas but amid real hardship. It contrasts sharply with his polished image, his resistance to any vulnerability. Your path diverges greatly from mine, Trump concedes, prompting a soft chuckle from the Pope. True, yet perhaps parallels exist beneath the surface. What parallels link a monk in South American slums to my world? Trump asks, intrigued. We've both wielded considerable sway, though in distinct realms, the Pope answers. We've both sparked fierce allegiance and sharp criticism. We've both shaped lives we'll never meet. His expression turns introspective. And I suspect we've both known the odd solitude of roles where few see us as mere individuals. That final point resonates. Trump rarely acknowledges, even to himself, the isolation shadowing his ascent to power, the shift from true friendships to calculated alliances, the relentless scrutiny, the fatigue of always performing. The cameras never truly vanish, he admits, surprising himself. Even unseen, you're observed, assessed, interpreted. Until the person beneath the public mask feels almost unreal, even to ourselves, the Pope adds softly. At times, I don't recognize the figure others perceive. Trump speaks further, words rising from a deeper well than his usual tact. The one either revered by followers or reviled by foes. Pope Robert nods, neither excusing nor accusing. Few do. It's the paradox of prominence. We become reflections of others' dreams and fears, risking loss of our own identity. He leans in, his gaze steady yet kind. May I ask something personal, Donald? Trump hesitates, then agrees. What did the young Donald Trump, before riches, before renown, before authority, aspire to in life? Not in wealth, but in goodness, in contributing to something larger than himself. The question pierces decades of crafted identity. Trump reaches for memories rarely touched, talks with his mother about aiding others, early dreams beyond victory or riches. I wanted to create things of value, he says slowly. Not just structures, but a heritage that enhanced lives, tackled issues. He shakes his head. It feels simple now. Maybe naive. Or perhaps profoundly meaningful, the Pope counters. That initial spark, to do something worthwhile, may still linger, buried beneath the layers of complexity and compromise life adds. Trump falls quiet, struck by the notion that beneath his achievements and controversies, an earlier, idealistic aim might endure, dormant but present. Pope Robert checks the modest watch on his wrist. I've held you longer than planned, he says. Before you leave, one last reflection. Go ahead, Trump says, meaning it. It's not too late, the Pope says plainly. To become the man you once envisioned. Before wealth, before fame, before power, you held a vision of good you wished to pursue. That spark remains, awaiting rediscovery. He rises, and Trump follows. They stand face to face in the sunlit study, two men of divergent origins and beliefs who, for a fleeting hour, connect as people, not titles. Thank you for coming, Pope Robert says. Offering his hand again. I valued your openness, and your viewpoint, Trump replies, the word insufficient yet the best he can muster. The Pope smiles, his eyes warm with unspoken understanding. Safe journey, Donald. My door stays open for further talks. Father Marco appears promptly, ready to guide Trump through the Vatican's intricate passages. As they walk, Trump remains unusually subdued, pondering the exchange just ended. It defied expectations: no political barter, no moral sermon, no bid for promises. By the time he reaches his motorcade, Trump projects the confidence his security detail and Vatican coordinators anticipate. Yet within, the Pope's words echo, especially the closing thought: "It's not too late to be the man you once hoped to become." The motorcade speeds through Rome's narrow lanes toward the airport, where Trump's private jet awaits. His team assumes he'll promptly contact advisors hungry for details of the landmark meeting, to the media to amplify its importance, to allies to craft its narrative. Instead, he stares out the window in rare silence, observing the ancient city pass, its ruins and landmarks a reminder of human endeavor's transience. His chief of security, seated opposite, clears his throat. "All well, sir." Trump nods. "Yes." The embassy set up a quick press event at the airport. "If you'd like to comment on the meeting," Trump pauses, then declines. "No point. It was personal." The security chief looks startled but doesn't push. As the motorcade nears the airport, Trump's mind returns to the Pope's legacy question, not the outward successes he typically touts, but the deeper query of his life's impact. Has he truly crafted meaningful legacies? Has he leveraged his vast platform to ease suffering within reach? Has winning overshadowed addressing the issues he identified? These questions, once dismissed as naive by those unacquainted with power's demands, carry new weight from Pope Robert, a man clearly grappling with his own use of influence. Trump, not given to sudden shifts or radical changes, clings to his long-held views on strength, negotiation, and leadership. Decades of identity and habit aren't erased by one talk. Yet as the plane ascends from Italian soil toward the Atlantic, he enters an uncommon state of self-reflection. The Pope's demeanor disarmed him, not frailty, but a strength unlike Trump's usual measure, not a dominating presence demanding obedience, but a receptive one fostering true connection. "He wasn't what I anticipated," Trump murmurs to himself. His aide, nearby, glances up. "Sir." Trump waves it off. "Nothing. Just musing." He turns to the window, watching Italy's landscape yield to the Mediterranean, then the Atlantic's expanse. Rome recedes, but the study's dialogue lingers, its queries settling into the silences of his thoughts. What did the young Donald Trump dream of beyond wealth and fame? What might it mean, at this life stage, to reclaim that early drive for purpose? Can he, as the Pope suggested, rediscover a truer vision of legacy? Answers elude him now. His nature urges him to shelve these thoughts, refocusing on the strategic pursuits that have shaped his years. But for now, aloft westward, he lets them rest, not as obstacles to conquer or puzzles to solve, but as prompts to reconsider life's measure. Perhaps the Pope's greatest gift was this: not a call for instant change, but a hint that other roads remain, that beneath layered habits, roles, and expectations, an authentic core still awaits. What this singular exchange might ultimately spark remains unclear. But for perhaps the first time in decades, Donald Trump has met, amid rallies and rivalries, not a foe or ally, but a man holding a mirror free of praise or scorn. And occasionally, from such a quiet exchange, a shift begins. In the crisp autumn of 2025, the city of Kyoto, Japan, became the backdrop for an unprecedented gathering, the Global Harmony Summit. Leaders, artists, and thinkers from 50 nations convened in the historic Nijo Castle, its wooden floors echoing centuries of tradition, to foster dialogue through cultural exchange. The summit, initiated by the United Nations Cultural Preservation Council, aimed to bridge divides in a world increasingly fractured by political and ideological tensions. Kyoto, with its blend of ancient temples and modern innovation, was a fitting stage for such an endeavor. The event unfolded over 5 days, each themed around a core human value: empathy, creativity, resilience, unity, and hope. On the first day, dedicated to empathy, a delegation from Senegal led the proceedings with a performance of traditional griot storytelling. Dressed in vibrant Kent cloth, the lead griot, Isatou Ndiaye, recounted the tale of a 17th-century fisherman who united rival villages during a famine. Her voice, accompanied by the rhythmic plucking of a kora, captivated the audience, including a group of Finnish diplomats who later shared their own oral history of surviving harsh Arctic winters. The exchange set the tone. Nations often at odds found common ground in shared human struggles. Day 2, centered on creativity, saw a collaboration between a Brazilian samba troupe and a Japanese taiko drumming ensemble. The fusion of samba's infectious energy with taiko's thunderous precision filled the castle's courtyard, drawing spontaneous applause from a Chinese delegation known for their reserved demeanor. Later, a workshop led by an Indian architect, Priya Sharma, explored how traditional mandala designs could inspire sustainable urban planning. Her session, attended by engineers from Germany and South Africa, sparked discussions on blending cultural aesthetics with modern functionality, a dialogue that continued late into the evening over cups of matcha tea. Resilience took focus on the third day, marked by a poignant speech from a Syrian refugee, Noor al-Hakim, who had rebuilt her life in Canada after fleeing war-torn Aleppo. She spoke of her family's survival through art. Her father, a painter, had bartered his sketches for food during their journey. Noor presented one of his works, a watercolor of a shattered minaret framed by a rising sun, symbolizing endurance. Her story moved a Russian delegate, Ivan Petrov, to share his grandfather's survival during the siege of Leningrad, forging an unexpected bond between the two. A collective art installation followed, where attendees contributed objects symbolizing resilience, beads from a Kenyan Maasai elder, a stone from an Irish famine wall, creating a mosaic of human perseverance. The fourth day, themed Unity, began with a Maori haka performed by a New Zealand delegation, their powerful chants reverberating through the castle grounds. The performance inspired a group of Mexican folk dancers to join in with a traditional jarabe tapatio, their colorful skirts swirling in rhythm with the haka's stomping. This spontaneous collaboration became the day's highlight, symbolizing the summit's goal of harmony through diversity. A panel discussion followed, moderated by a Swedish diplomat, Elsa Lindgren, who emphasized the importance of cultural diplomacy in resolving global conflicts. Representatives from Israel and Palestine, seated side by side, listened intently, later engaging in a private conversation that observers noted as a rare moment of civility. Hope defined the final day, with a closing ceremony that featured a children's choir from Ukraine singing a folk song of renewal, their voices a haunting reminder of their nation's ongoing struggles. The choir was joined by young drummers from Nigeria, whose beats infused the melody with an uplifting tempo. The summit concluded with a symbolic planting of a cherry blossom tree in the castle's garden, each delegation adding a handful of soil from their homeland. This concludes our narrative journey. I trust you found this gripping saga of intrigue, cutting-edge innovation, and astonishing discoveries captivating. From where are you tuning in today? I'm curious to learn which corner of the globe this tale has touched. If this escapade held your interest, please give this video a thumbs up and consider subscribing to the channel for a steady stream of compelling, mind-expanding stories just like this one. Fresh material is posted frequently, ensuring you're always in the loop for the newest spellbinding adventures. Be sure to pass this video along to your loved ones and friends. It's a great way to share positivity and insight while expanding our circle of story enthusiasts. Your encouragement is invaluable. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to welcoming you back for the next tale.